All right, Kenny, tell us about who we got coming up next, man.
Oh, I really enjoy doing this, Eric. This is one of my favorite folks in the business. It's Fred Gordy. He is an evangelist, a cybersecurity spokesman. He has done more work, selfless work, to promote cybersecurity in our industry than anybody I know. He's also introduced the concept of operational technology versus IT versus OT versus IT. So welcome to the show, Fred Gordy, Director of Cybersecurity at Intelligent Buildings LLC. Fred, welcome to the show.
Welcome to the show, Fred.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate the opportunity to come on Control Trends, Control Talk again. It's been a little while. Missed you guys, but thank you for having me.
Oh, man, you're always welcome, Fred. Well, I tell you what, Kenny and I sort of dubbed. We really feel like we are at the beginning of what Kenny, I like to call the control trend and the controls, building automation controls, smart buildings renaissance, and so many things going on. And of course, with any great new technology or anything getting ramped up, there's always problems that are created. Kenny and I've always loved your work. I mean, I think that, you are we think you're the law, man, the long arm of the law, and you're making our buildings safer. So first of all, tell us about the new company and what you're doing there. And then we got questions for you.
Good. Well, I'm excited about this. I got an opportunity to move over to Intelligent Buildings with Tom and Rob, and those guys have embraced me, and they've embraced what I've been working on for the past 5 or 6 years, and also the extracurricular activities like Control Trends and Control Talk. They're all on board with that. Just a little quick thing about Intelligent Buildings. We serve as the customer advocate, that's what I like to call it. But basically, it's at a higher level where you're working with systems across all systems and not specifically just any particular system type, plus really genuinely putting smart buildings together and working with the FDD part of it, analytics, so on and so forth. And it's afforded me the opportunity to get to know some top Fortune 50 companies, and these guys are beginning to embrace the cybersecurity message, and that's encouraging, and it's allowing me to do more of that.
No, it's really cool. Well, we met Tom Shurtleff and Rob Murchison at many of the meetings, and I'll give my take on these guys because I think you guys serve an invaluable role, and as a customer advocate, what that really means to me is in one of the first presentations I heard these guys make, Fred, was they talked about the fact that you got to get everybody on the same page, and they got to get everybody aligned. And I think that's among, one of the core competencies you guys have, because without alignment, you're just not going to be able to make things work, no matter how good the system is. So those guys are great at that. And I tell you what, dude, we've known you through a couple of reiterations. We started off with a kinder general or Fred Gordy. It was a little bit like we got this issue out there and you're trying to get people's attention. It's a little bit like, you're sort of pointing a little bit and maybe putting a little bit of warm water on the face, trying to wake them up. But understand that you've sort of begun an edict that forget the warm water, Ken. Forget the warm water, Fred. Get out the bucket of water. So cold water, right?
Cold water, splashing.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I mean, the thing about it is everybody, I believe this sincerely, everybody realizes we have a problem. And I'm all about analogies, and sometimes it comes across, I like to try to put it in terms that people understand. And I don't know how else to say it, but, when we hear something on the news about, say, something bad happens in another neighborhood, it's robbery, it's a murder, that kind of thing, we always think that's sad, and we want to watch our homes. But then we also think, well, that was in another neighborhood. That's kind of the mentality with the cybersecurity thing, is everybody knows it's a problem, and they really don't want it to happen to them. But they feel like, I think sometimes what they do is they look at it like, well, why would anybody want to attack me? Well, another thing that came to, as I've been going through this journey, you may not be that big company, but you may be a third-party vendor to a big company, or a third-party vendor to a company that supplies a big company. And the bad guys are just looking for any avenue to get in. Now, they may not do anything to you, but hate to pick on the guys, but if we take Phasio, they use Phasio to get to target. So it's time for us to, this is my approach now, is I'm, as part of my role with intelligent buildings, but also just what I do is I'm using more and more tools to continually see how bad off we are. And it's not getting better, it's getting worse. I'm able to see more now than I used to with the tools that I use. And so, yeah, my approach is going to be a little more aggressive now.
Well, that's really cool, Fred. Well, listen, off air, you mentioned the C word, and Chinese, and so look, can you show us a couple of these tools and maybe a couple of things that you got going on?
Absolutely.
All right, let's take a look.
All right, so in this effort of searching for things, you guys have all heard me talk about Shodan, and Shodan is still a very viable tool. I use it. You can find a lot of things, but what I've found is there is a couple of other tools. The one you see here, I'll get to in just a moment, but there's another one called Census, and I'm going to have all this on Control Trends, so if people want to look at it a little more in detail, I'll show them. But while I was doing this, I have to give credit to my buddy Mark Peacock. He sent me an email one day and said, "Have you ever heard of Zuma?" And I hadn't, so I started doing a little research, and I found them. And I also found out that their origin is Chinese. Well, we've all heard the stories about, the Chinese government denies they're doing anything, but then we all see these things where it looks like things are originating from China. Excuse me. So I started using it as a tool as well, because if they're searching us, they're probably finding more things than what even Shodan and Census are finding. And my suspicions were true. For instance, not to pick on Niagara, but if you do a Shodan search for Niagara stuff, you'll see anywhere from 18,000 to 20,000 devices in the United States. When you do it on Zuma, you find 42,000 to 48,000. So what are they doing? I don't know, but they're finding more. So in my quest to find sites and let people know that they're being exposed, I found this site that you're looking at on the screen. Notice they have a nice little handy, and I pointed out, it says link to login page. You click that button, and it'll take you right to the login page. I've got it redacted or covered up, but that is a government defense contractor's web supervisor.
Oh my gosh. And that's scary.
Yes, and they make, let's just say, warfare devices. Okay. Now, also, Tritium has done a good job about trying to beef up their security, and they have. But if you look there, it says, I've got it highlighted, 3.5.41. Well, I hope all of us remember that was the last of the very insecure versions of Niagara. So, so not only is it an exposed government defense contractor, but they're running a known vulnerable version. Now, this next page, I wanted to go back and see what Census had. And as I mentioned before, Census is another tool that I use. So I put that IP address in, and Census had some good information about it. But if you'll notice right under the Niagara Tritium Fox, it says has contractor info. What I mean by that is the station name is actually the defense contractor's name. All right, so I decided to see what else Census had on it. Down near the bottom under there where you see Get View Page. Now this is going to be a little shocking to you. This is what it yielded. And I couldn't get all of these screens on one page. This is, I know it looks like an eye chart, so I pointed out some things here. There's the server name, what operating system it's running. It's also got the RSA. That's the, if you're familiar with that, that's a security algorithm that people use, and it has it there. Has the host ID, but it also has the internal IP addresses of this system. And interestingly enough, it even lists who set up their wireless network, the vendor, and it gives the name and the email address of the guy that did it. Yeah. So, the Chinese are hunting for stuff now actively. And real quick, just some other things that I found. If you want to take a look at this real quick. All right, this is a data center that I found. And we've all heard the term backdoor. Backdoor basically means there's a common username and password that everybody knows. Now, this doesn't have anything to do with the defense contractor. This is just some other things that I found. There's a Lieber Challenger, which we know is a crack unit. And I wanted to see if Lieber was still active, and it was. And then once I did that, now I can edit the set points inside the crack. And if I want to, I could run them up high enough. And because the temperature climb in a data center can cause servers to shut down, I could, just by changing set points, shut a data center down. Another thing that I found is there's a protocol called remote desktop. And what that does is that allows you to remote into a machine. Well, a server I found had remote desktop enabled. And I didn't do this. It was actually posted on Census, a screen capture of their remote desktop. And I've covered up 3 of the names that you see there because those are very descriptive names. Now, why does that matter? Well, if we've ever heard the term phishing or spear phishing, that means if I know somebody, spear phishing especially because it's a directed email, if I know your name and what company you work for, I can play around with some email addresses and send you an email that seems like it should be for you. And if you click a link, now I'm inside your system.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's just a few things, and I'll go in detail on control trends.
Well, Fred, that is something else, and I tell you what, we will definitely post that on Control Trends. That's great stuff, Fred. Very, very alarming. And like I said, it doesn't seem like the quote unquote black hats are slowing down at all, are they?
No, not really.
So how can you help? How do you guys help? Talk about how Intelligent Buildings helps.
So what we do is, like if with the customer, we got a couple of things. We've got what's called a threat scorecard, and it's a quick snapshot and we'll do a quick assessment, and it's a very high level. It's not going to drill down into all the things that you need to do, but it's a kind of a temperature read real quick. It says, you take a look at it, we go through it with you really quick, and then you'll make it'll be eye-opening to you because it'll show you the deficiencies you have. Now, at that point, you can elect to do the things yourself, or if you want to take it to a much deeper level, then we step to that next level and we begin to map out how your network is set up, review things if you haven't engaged with your IT department, we help you engage in your IT department, and then we set up a strategy for you that puts up the iron curtain, so to speak.
Well, no, I can see why why Control Trends Awards gave Fred Gordy and Mark Peacock the Cybersecurity Award last year, because I'm taking notes again. The things that you're saying, Fred, here are scaring me that we don't have a handle on it, and that the bad guys are getting a greater lead and we can't catch them. But this apathy that's still so prevalent, I think you need to use your cold water treatment, and it should go to the we should have more focus on this on Control Trends, Eric. I mean, I think that our trends for 2016, cybersecurity is going to come right up again and be the #1 trend, because now you're seeing there's more tools to expose more sites, and Niagara's getting picked on, and yet we're going to a Niagara meeting. We need to infuse these people with fear that they're getting.
And one thing too is, when all of this first started, there was some, things being slung around, bad words, whatever you want to call it. But let's take a step back. Something that even if you're not an integrator, you would realize is, remember the years ago when there was Windows and Mac, and there was all of the Mac people, which I have a Mac, I've got Windows machines as well, but the Mac guys were saying all the stuff about Windows is vulnerable, so on and so forth. The reality is Windows had the largest share of market. So who are the bad guys going to go after? They're going to go after Windows. Well, I even use this term when I'm describing what is Niagara. Niagara is kind of like the Windows of integration, they have a pretty large footprint, whether it be Tritium, Schneider, whoever the case may be. There are Niagara systems out there. Honeywell has them, Johnson has them, so on and so forth. So who are they going to go after? They're going to go after Niagara because that's the most prevalent.
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. Fred, let me ask you a question. Is it possible, we do live streams from Stromquist and Company all the time. We would love to get you on. And if our Control Trends community is interested in this, please reach out in comments. Would love to have you come on, maybe do like a hour and a half lunch and learn where people can interact with you via, our live streaming software. Was that something you might be willing to do?
I'd love to do that. That would be awesome. Yes.
Awesome.
And I can show them some stuff in real time, how things are found and that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Fred, I just want to review too that you've already given us so much information. If any of our Control Trends viewers and listeners are able to get the Control Trends and they Google Fred Gordy up on the toolbar, the search toolbar, you have given us seminal documents. Are you ready to react or preact? And you talk about checklists. You gave us a checklist that's extraordinarily focused on our end of the business stick, the operational technology. And that's the stuff that turns off and on versus, databases that have, customer information and files and, financials and medical histories. We're talking about things like you just said that can turn off and on. You can take over a building and you can really create damage to it. It's time to react more like, it's not a question of if, it's a question of when. And you've said that you should already have your statements made, who to go to. If we do get hacked, this is what we're going to say. So I just want to remind everybody that you're given this information. The seminal documents are there, and you're going to continue to post more to it. So what can we do to help get more involved?
The thing is we still got some maturity in the product lines and things. I will say that, Link Springs has Cyber Pro, and that's proven to be a good piece of hardware to use. However, I don't know how to say it any plainer. The reality is you've got to take stock of yourself, your company, your people, and make your people, let's don't use that term. Help your people learn that they are as much a part of IT as the IT guys are, because the whole is going to come through a person more times than not. You can put the walls up, the firewalls, you can put everything in place. You can have passwords that are 128 characters long. But if somebody is negligent and leaves that information around, then all of that stuff goes out the window. Nothing you can do with your IT. So it's people first, but then also almost parallel, the survey that we do, there's some questions that the answer, it's multiple choice, and the answer is, I don't know. Well, to me, that's the worst answer you can give. If you say, I don't have a firewall in place, or do you have a firewall in place, and you say yes, or you say no, well, no is not good. But if you say, I don't know, then what that tells me is you have no idea how your system's configured. You got to know that. You got to know how to defend. You got to know what your borders are so you can know how to defend them.
Well said, Fred. Well, listen, buddy, we are going to have to hop off here for now, but thank you so much. Can we get you back on this show? We'd love to have you come on at least once a month. Keep us updated.
Absolutely. Right. Thank you, guys. I do appreciate the opportunity.
You bet. Our guest, Fred Gordy from intelligentbuildings.com. Check them out. Fred, thanks again, buddy.